Good morning, this is Stephen Pugh of the City and Guilds woodworking course. I want to do another video. This is in carrying out first fix flooring operations. It's 207 and it's types of joist coverings. Now there are 5 main types of joist coverings. The first one is chipboard. When I built my house when I was a young kid, chipboard, we did it everywhere. 8x4 sheets, just 35 sheets, did the whole building. Now, another way is square-edged plywood. Now, that's a much more sophisticated material, much cleaner, and very good indeed. One of the materials that's becoming common nowadays is OSB or OSB board, which is it's orientated strand board. That's what OSB stands for. I never can remember quite what the words mean, but it's OSB board. It's like chipboard, except the chips are really big ones, as big as my hand, and they're all put together, and it produces a very strong and dense surface. Chipboard, of course, comes in lots of varieties of types. I mean, we get square-edged sheets, large sheets. We get the small sheets with a tongue on 2 sides, or sometimes on 3 sides, and then we get heavy-duty chipboard, which is much heavier, and sometimes we even have a floorboard made of chipboard, which has a mastic surface on the one side. That's mainly used for upper floors and sometimes on roofs. But there's 2 other types, and the one is softwood tongue and groove board, and the other one is hardwood tongue and groove board. Now they're both beautifully made, they're both exceptionally strong. The important thing to remember is that the tongue and the groove are always at the bottom part of the timber, so we make sure we put it the right way up. And sometimes they have cuts across the bottom of the timber to relieve stress on the board. Okay, now all of these boards and all of these types of flooring need to be considered very carefully as we're fitting them, making sure that the joists, making sure the coverings are not exactly touching the brickwork, but are 10 millimeters short from the brickwork all around. And there's a specification for softwood timber floors, certain sizes that are to be used, but that's something which will be told to you, and it'll be specified in the specification. So there's nothing for you really to worry about over all that. The methods of fixing joist coverings is very simple. The timbers are put, the coverings are put down nice and squarely. They're fitted in such a way that the ends of large sheets, for example, always finish on a joist. So that's really important. Some of the new types of, that's for square edged, some of the new types of sheets are large too, but they have a tongue and groove on all sides. Now, when they have a tongue and groove on them, they don't have to be then centered onto floorboards, because the tongue and groove will fit into each other even if there's nothing underneath supporting it. So it's actually quite a good way of fixing. 2 things about this. These coverings are very much better if they're fitted with either a mastic or they're fitted with PVA. So PVA on the joists underneath or a mastic on the joists underneath is very good. This helps to bed them nice and gently. It mustn't be fast-acting mastic. It must be a slow-acting mastic. They can be then nailed down with lost heads. For example, a lost head is a nail that has a head that's very small in relation to its body, which means it can be nail punched into the timber without too much problem. They do have a tendency, however, to pull themselves back up with friction on the floor. The floor will cause them to rise. Skew nailing is a very common practice where 2 nails are put down opposite one another, and sometimes they're even put down to cross over, and that enables them to sort of bind on the floor. They cannot lift up very easily. Annular ring shank nails, round-headed, are very good indeed. Now, the reason why they're very good is because on the side of the nail, they have these annular rings. Annular just means that they're rings that go all the way around. And they have an exceptionally good gripping power. gripping power. So they're just like a normal nail, but they grip much more. They don't have a smooth shank, so they can't pull out of the wood easily because they're hanging onto the wood much more tightly. Of course, a first fix nail gun, good quality nails, also works very well indeed. Where it's tongue and groove boards, they normally need to be PVA. In fact, actually, tongue and groove, whether it's boards or whether it's sheets, they all, normally speaking, are glued just before they're nailed down or screwed down. There's lots of different ways of fitting a floor down. One is using ordinary nails. One is using lost head nails. One is using annular ring shank nails. Another one is using screws, and another one is using secret nails. There's lots of options, isn't there? Secret nailing is a great way, because with secret nailing, the one board, is a little bit set back on its tongue, and the effect of that is the other board will come and cover it, but because it's sticking forward, it means you can put a nail in there. And the special guns that are used with a mallet, you put it against the timber and you give it a clout, and it'll put a nail in, a secret nail, and it does it very accurately, far more accurately than we could ever do by hand. So that's a very important piece of information to know about. There are also floor brads. Now, floor brads are just basically a very simple rough nail. However, they are exceptionally strong. They do have a piece that sticks out sideways. They're called cut. Sometimes they're called cut brads rather than floor brads, because they're made on a guillotine. They're literally a piece of steel, clunk, 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 and it produces this square nail. They're quite tapered, but they're always square. Square always works well with wood. Round doesn't so much. So what a square brad does is it punches its way straight through, but it has a tremendous holding power. It does hold the boards down very well indeed. And there's the next thing we need to remember is that when joists go down, they need to go down tight. And there's lots of different ways of doing this. One is to put a small piece of offcut against the tongue or the groove, whichever way you're doing it, and you can put a chisel behind, give it a thump, and give it a lever. And as you lever it, and as you lever the boards, so it actually creates a tightness right across all the boards. Another way of doing it is to have a special clamping device which fits on top of a joist, and it's then wound. As it's wound, so it pushes all the boards together. Another way is to put some timber across, and to as you put some timber across, you can put some sliding wedges in, and that'll have a tendency to clamp over. And then the last way, the final way that I'm aware of, is that you put a lot of timbers in, put a lot of joists, a lot of coverings in, and then you put some floorboards, for example, on a rise. So put them on a rise, and as you stand on it and put pressure down on it, so it actually makes them go in very tight indeed. So that's another way of being able to put down floorboards really tight. One of the other features that needs to happen on floorboards is that you sometimes need to make access traps for surfaces. Now, if it's fancy floorboard, if it's the really good stuff that you can't, if it's the really good stuff and you've got like oak boards, or you've got something that's really nice, then you may need to make a trap that's beautifully fitted, like a door with a little handle on. But normally speaking, you can make a tongue and groove trap, or you can make a chipboard trap. But they go into a trap. They go into like a small box, and they can be fitted down. They normally are screwed down. They're normally screwed down with recessed screw caps. The effect of this is that the screw caps tend to stop the screws being completely lost inside the timber. So that's a really, really important feature. And then lastly, I just want to talk about the different tools used to fix joist coverings. The first one is circular saws. When we're using small circular saws for cutting chipboard flooring or for anything else, then we will be using tungsten carbide tipped blades, and these are very long lasting, and they'll really cut through the timber quite effectively. Another way of doing it, if you're using lots of floorboard, is a small chop saw. A small chop saw that just chops them off perfectly straight each time. It's exceptionally handy, I have to say. Fixed nail guns are good because as the first fixed nail guns go down, so it tends to pop them below the surface. And then, of course, we can have cordless drill drivers, or we can have corded drill drivers, or we can have second fixed nail guns. So all of these tools all have their place in the different parts of fixing a floor. Of course, a lot of the time floors are fixed by hand. Okay, they're fixed by just a hammer, good quality hammer, lots and lots of nails, and just keep going. I've done many floors in which there were thousands upon thousands and thousands of nails, all put down by hand. So there we are. That's the basics of laying floorboards and so on, especially in carrying out first fix flooring. So we look forward to catching up with you on our next video. So have a good day. See you next time. Bye for now.